In just 7 days, your old self can die, and the new you can rise. Not someday, not years from now. In 7 days, if you'll dare to speak the word and obey it, you'll see the resurrection of your true self. I'll show you exactly how to smash the false records of your old self, the records of fear, lack, sickness, and failure, and how to replace them with new records of prosperity, health, love, and perfect self-expression. Over 7 days, you'll learn how to speak the word, how to guard your speech, how to listen to intuition, and how to live as your resurrected self. If you felt trapped in the same patterns for years, this will break the cycle. 7 days is all you need when you know how to use the law. I know what it's like to feel bound to the old self, to wake up every day with the same problems, to repeat the same mistakes, to feel like you're living on a loop of disappointment. Most people think change is slow, but that's because they're trying to change appearances instead of smashing the false record beneath them. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered the law of substitution, the law of the word, and the law of divine timing, and she proved that transformation can happen quickly when you act under divine law. In the next few moments, I'll show you how the old self can truly die, how its false grooves can be erased, and how the new you, your true divine design, can rise. And once you begin, you'll see signs within hours that the process has already started. Here's how we'll move together over these 110 minutes. First, I'll show you exactly what the old self is and how its false records have kept you bound. Then, I'll reveal the sentence that smashes those false records so you no longer live under their music. After that, we'll go day by day through the 7-day cycle of death and resurrection, showing you how each day deepens the demolition of the old and engraves the record of the new. Along the way, you'll hear real stories of transformation, people who saw money multiply, sickness vanish, and love restored in just a week. And at the end, you'll leave not with theory, but with a living practice that can rewire your whole being in 7 days. Stay with me, because I'll also reveal a truth most people miss. The one phrase that can undo all your work if you let it slip. And once you know how to avoid it, nothing can stop your transformation. Here's something most people completely miss. The old self you think is you is nothing more than a bundle of false records. It is not who you are. It is not what God designed. It is not permanent. It is not true. It is a shadow self, a copy of lies, a groove cut into the subconscious by years of careless words, fears rehearsed, complaints repeated, and jokes that never should have been spoken. This false self is the reason you feel bound, the reason you keep repeating the same patterns, the reason you feel like your life is stuck on repeat. You pray for change, you beg for new conditions, but the false record plays on, and until you smash it, until you declare its death, nothing can shift. That is why I say to you, the old self must die. You cannot rise until you see what must fall. You cannot wear the new robe until you shed the old garment. You cannot step into resurrection until the false self is buried. I want you to picture it with me. Imagine a phonograph with a record spinning, playing the same tune over and over. Perhaps the tune is sad. Perhaps it is discordant. Perhaps you've grown tired of it. But as long as the record spins, the music fills the room. That is your life under the false self. Every time you sigh, "I can't afford it," the record deepens its groove. Every time you mutter, "I always get sick this time of year," the groove deepens. Every time you joke, "With my luck, things never work out," the groove deepens. And soon the false self is nothing more than the echo of those grooves. That's why you wake up and feel like nothing has changed, because the record has not been broken. Let me give you a story to make this vivid. A woman once amused herself as a child by saying she lived in a trunk. It was just a game to her. She would climb into closets, laugh, and say, "This is my trunk. I live here." Everyone around her thought it was harmless fun. They laughed, they clapped, they thought it was a clever joke. But the subconscious does not laugh. It does not distinguish between jest and decree. It only hears the word and engraves it as law. And what happened? Years later, that woman's circumstances collapsed. Her fortune was lost, her comforts stripped away, and she found herself literally traveling the world living out of a trunk. What had been a joke became her reality. The false self had been written in her words, and life obeyed. Now pause and think of yourself. What grooves have you cut with your own words? What phrases have you spoken so often that they've become the very song of your life? Do you sigh, "I'm always tired"? Do you joke, "I'll end up broke"? Do you confess, "Nobody ever stays, everybody leaves"? These are not harmless phrases. These are the false self. They are the grooves cut into the subconscious, and as long as they remain, they will play back into your affairs. That is why the old self must die, because it is nothing more than a recording of lies. So let me set the stakes for you clearly. If you cling to the false self, your life will keep circling in the same patterns: fear replaying as failure, lack replaying as debt, sickness replaying as weakness, loneliness replaying as disappointment. That is what it means to let the false self live. But if you dare to expose it, to see it for what it is, to call it by its true name, a lie, then you can smash it. You can declare its nothingness. You can bury it once and for all. And when you do, the new self, the true self, the divine self will rise. So let us make the first cut together, the first death stroke against the false self. Speak this with me now. I now smash and demolish every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. Say it again, with power. Say it until you feel the lie tremble. Say it until you sense that the false self is not you, has never been you, and has no claim over you. The record is false, and it must be broken. This is the beginning of your 7-day resurrection. Today, the death sentence has been spoken. The false self has been exposed. And in the next movement, we will name the enemy clearly so that you know exactly what you are burying. Fear, the inverted faith that has ruled too long. And once you bury fear, faith will rise in its place. Now that the false self has been exposed, you must go a step further. You must name the enemy. For you cannot kill what you refuse to identify. You cannot bury what you will not call by its true name. And here is the truth that shakes many. The enemy is not other people. The enemy is not the government. The enemy is not circumstances. The enemy is not fate. The enemy is fear. Always and only fear. Fear is the inverted faith that keeps the false self alive. Fear is faith in evil instead of faith in God. Fear is belief in shadows instead of trust in light. Fear is the whisper that says, "What if you fail? What if you lose? What if sickness comes? What if poverty strikes? What if love never arrives?" And as long as you bow to that whisper, as long as you let it play on repeat, fear becomes the record that writes your life. Scripture says it plainly through the voice of Job, "The thing I feared has come upon me." Notice the precision of that statement. Job did not say, "the thing I expected," or "the thing I hoped for." He said, "the thing I feared." Fear magnetized his calamity. Fear carved the grooves. Fear became the prophecy fulfilled. And so it is with every life. The one who fears sickness finds sickness. The one who fears poverty finds poverty. The one who fears betrayal finds betrayal. Not because God has cursed them, not because fate has singled them out, but because their fear has become faith in reverse, and faith always fulfills itself. Think of it this way. Faith and fear are the same power flowing in opposite directions. Faith says, "Only good can come. My supply is sure. My health is strong. My path is clear." Fear says, "Only evil will come. My money will run out. My body will fail. My way is blocked." Both are decrees. Both cut grooves. Both are records. The difference is that faith records truth and fear records lies. The difference is that faith aligns with God and fear aligns with nothingness. And because the subconscious cannot resist, it plays whatever is given, whether faith or fear. That is why fear must die. Until fear is buried, faith cannot rise. Until you call fear the enemy and strip it of its disguise, you will keep living under its shadow. Let me show you how subtle this enemy is. A woman once came to me trembling with anxiety over her health. She was perfectly well, but she lived in terror of disease. She read every article, studied every symptom, and repeated constantly, "I just know I'll catch it. I always do." Her friends laughed and called her a worrier, but her subconscious was not laughing. It was recording every fearful word. And soon, her body began to obey the record. Her fears became symptoms, her symptoms became illness, and her prophecy fulfilled itself. What had caused her suffering? Not disease, but fear of disease. Fear had written the script. But once she named it, once she declared, "This is not truth, this is fear, and fear is nothing," she smashed the record. She replaced it with faith. She began to affirm health instead of sickness, life instead of death, truth instead of lies. And her body, faithful to the new record, obeyed. So I say to you, do not let fear hide behind excuses. Do not let it call itself caution or being realistic or just preparing for the worst. Name it, expose it, call it what it is. Inverted faith, faith in evil, faith in nothingness. And once you call it by its true name, you can kill it. You can bury it. You can declare its end. Let us do that together now. Speak this with me. The thing I feared will not come upon me, for fear is a lie and has no power. I now smash every record of fear in my subconscious. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now make new records of faith, records of courage, records of trust in God's unfailing good. Say it until you feel the fear losing its grip. Say it until you sense the old grooves cracking. Say it until your heart knows that fear is not your master. It is only a shadow, and shadows vanish in the light. This is the second step in the death of the old self. To name the enemy as fear, to strip it of its disguise, to see it for the lie it has always been. And once fear is named, you are ready to strike the final blow, the first cut that severs the old self from your life forever, the decree that smashes the false record and engraves the truth of who you really are. And that is where we go next. And now, beloved, we come to the first cut, the moment of decision, the stroke that severs the false self from your life. For it is not enough to expose the false self, not enough to name fear as the enemy. Exposure without action leaves the record spinning. Naming without cutting leaves the grooves unbroken. The false self has been seen, the enemy has been identified, and now it must be smashed. Today is the day you lift the sword of the word and strike. This is the death sentence of the old self, and it begins with a decree so final, so absolute, that once spoken in faith, it echoes through your subconscious and breaks the chains at their root. Here is the decree, the hammer that smashes the record. I now smash and demolish every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now make new and perfect records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. Say it once, and you feel the air shift. Say it twice, and you feel the ground beneath your feet steady. Say it 3 times, and you know the blow has been struck. For this is not suggestion. This is law. This is not a hopeful affirmation. This is a command. You are not begging the false self to leave. You are declaring its death. You are not pleading for new life. You are engraving it. You are not whispering into shadows. You are speaking to the very engine of your being, and the subconscious has no choice but to obey. Think of the power of those words. Every untrue record. That means every groove of fear, every track of poverty, every refrain of sickness, every chorus of loneliness, every lie whispered in jest, every curse muttered in despair, they are all included. None are spared. All are demolished. They return to the dust of nothingness. They do not linger. They do not hide. They do not wait in the shadows to strike again. They dissolve. They vanish. They are returned to the nothingness from which they came. For they were never true. They were only shadows, lies without substance, grooves without reality. And now, by the power of the word, they are no more. And then comes the resurrection. I now make new and perfect records. Do you hear the finality in that? Not I will make, not I hope to make, not I am trying to make. I now make. The record is cut, the grooves are inscribed, and they are perfect. Perfect health, perfect wealth, perfect love, perfect self-expression. Not partial, not broken, not delayed. Perfect. And once cut, those grooves cannot be erased except by your own contradiction. But if you guard them, if you repeat them, if you let them play until they become the only music in your soul, then they will manifest as surely as sunrise. Let me tell you what happens when someone dares to speak this decree. I have seen students come to me with lives in ruins, debts piling up, bodies wasting away, relationships in tatters. And I give them this one sentence, this first cut, and tell them to speak it morning and night. And within days, within hours even, things begin to move. A check arrives in the mail, a fever breaks, a call comes from a long-lost friend. Why? Because the false record has been smashed, and the subconscious no longer has old grooves to play. The only melody it has left is the one you have just inscribed. So I ask you now, will you dare to make the first cut? Will you dare to declare the death of your old self? Not tomorrow, not someday, but today? Speak it aloud with me again, with authority, with certainty, with faith. I now smash and demolish every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now make new and perfect records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. Say it until you feel the false self crumble. Say it until the fear loses its grip. Say it until you sense the rising of something new inside you. For this is the first cut, and with it, the resurrection has already begun. This completes the first day of your 7-day journey. The old self has been sentenced. The grooves of lies have been exposed, the enemy named, and the decree of demolition spoken. The false self is already dying, and the new self is stirring. But the process is not finished. Tomorrow, we go deeper into the burial of fear. For fear, the only true enemy, must be laid to rest once and for all. And once fear is buried, faith will rise unstoppable. Now that the false self has been exposed, named, and struck with the first cut, we must bury the power that has sustained it all these years, fear. For fear is the root of every false record. Fear is the only enemy you have ever had. Not people, not conditions, not circumstances, not chance. Fear alone. Fear is inverted faith. Fear is faith in evil instead of God, faith in lack instead of supply, faith in sickness instead of health, faith in failure instead of success. Fear is the great illusion that clothes nothingness in a mask of power. And the moment you believe the mask, you hand fear the pen to write your destiny. Jesus asked his disciples, "Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith?" He was not scolding them for being human. He was revealing the central law, that fear and faith cannot live in the same heart, and that the presence of one excludes the other. If fear reigns, faith cannot rise. If faith rules, fear must be buried. Think of it. How many of the disasters in your life have been nothing but the unfolding of fear's prophecy? You feared poverty, and the purse emptied. You feared sickness, and the body weakened. You feared betrayal, and the heart was broken. You feared failure, and the opportunity slipped away. Just like Job, you could say, "The thing I feared has come upon me." But see it clearly. Fear did not predict the future. Fear created it. Fear carved the grooves. Fear played the record. Fear became the melody to which your life marched. And until you bury it, you will keep marching to the same dirge. But here is the mercy of the law. Fear has no substance. It is nothing but inverted imagination, nothing but faith turned backward. Fear is a shadow without a source. Fear is a lie without a root. The moment you refuse to feed it, it starves. The moment you refuse to speak it, it silences. The moment you refuse to obey it, it crumbles. And when it crumbles, faith rises in its place. That is why burying fear is not a loss, but a resurrection. For when fear dies, faith lives. Let me tell you how subtle this enemy can be. A student once confessed to me that she lived every day dreading the arrival of bills. Each time she saw an envelope in the post, her heart raced with panic. She would open it trembling, muttering, "I'll never be able to pay this." And what happened? The bills grew larger, the debts multiplied. The fear she rehearsed became the very condition she lived. It was not the bills that were the enemy. It was the fear. And once she learned to smash the record of fear and declare, "God is my supply, and every bill is paid in perfect order," the bills ceased to torment her. The same envelopes arrived, but they no longer carried chains, because fear had been buried and faith had taken its place. So I ask you plainly, what fear has been writing your record? What fear has been holding you hostage, whispering its lies into your life? Is it the fear of running out? The fear of growing old? The fear of being alone? The fear of failing yet again? Whatever it is, name it now and know that it is the only enemy. And once named, bury it. Refuse to repeat it. Refuse to joke about it. Refuse to describe it as truth. Declare its nothingness and watch as faith fills the space it once occupied. Let us affirm it together as a decree of burial. Fear, you are nothing. You have no power, no life, no substance. I smash every record of fear in my subconscious. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now write only records of faith, courage, and divine certainty. Only good awaits me, and only good shall come. Say it until the tremble in your chest turns to calm. Say it until the whisper of dread is silenced. Say it until you feel faith rising like the dawn, pushing back the night. For this is the burial of fear, and once buried, it cannot rise again. This is the first step of day 2, to see that fear is the only enemy, to name it as nothing, and to lay it in its grave. And once you have buried fear, you are ready for the next revelation, that what once looked like lions roaring at you are nothing but shadows waiting to be faced. And when you walk into the den, you will find the lions turned to angels, the terror turned to triumph. And that is where we will go next. Now that we have named fear as the only enemy and declared its burial, let us look squarely at how fear often appears. It does not always come as a whisper in the night. It does not always come as a faint tremor in the chest. Often it comes as a roaring lion, threatening to devour you. Fear dresses itself in the costume of overwhelming appearances, an impossible diagnosis, an unpaid bill, a looming loss, a sudden storm. It roars, it bares its teeth, it convinces you that destruction is certain. And the reasoning mind, if left unchecked, cowers before it. But when you walk by faith, when you declare the nothingness of fear, you can walk straight into the lion's den and find the beasts are nothing but shadows, angels in disguise, waiting to serve you. Think of Daniel, cast into the lion's den by decree of men, surrounded by beasts meant to kill him, with every appearance shouting that this was his end. Yet Daniel did not tremble. Daniel did not rehearse his doom. Daniel rested in the presence of God. And what happened? The lions that roared were silenced, their mouths shut, their teeth turned to nothing. He walked out unharmed because he saw through the appearance. The lions were not enemies. They were proof of God's power to deliver. What looked like destruction became demonstration. And so it will be with you. I recall a student who faced a storm at sea. The fog was thick, the ship uncertain, every sailor muttering of danger. Fear swept the deck like a cold wind. But she remembered the law and declared, "There are no fogs in divine mind. Let the fog be lifted, let harmony reign." And within moments the fog cleared, the waters calmed, the danger dissolved. What had looked like lions roaring in the form of fog and storm were revealed as nothing, and the ship sailed safely on. Fear had appeared as a roaring lion, but truth exposed it as a harmless shadow. This is the way of fear. It appears large, but it has no substance. It looks like a lion, but it is only smoke. And the moment you face it with decree, the moment you declare, "I walk up to the lion and find an angel in armor," the moment you step into the den with faith instead of trembling, the appearance collapses, the roar fades, and you find yourself standing unharmed in the center of what once terrified you. So I ask you, what lions are roaring at you now? What appearance of disaster has been looming over you? Is it the lion of unpaid debts, the lion of failing health, the lion of rejection, the lion of loneliness? Whatever it is, hear me clearly. It is only a shadow. It is only fear dressed up as power. And when you walk toward it, declaring truth, it will crumble into nothing. Let us practice it together now. Say aloud with me, "I walk up to the lion and find an angel in armor. I am fearless, for God is with me." Every roaring appearance of danger collapses into demonstration. Every shadow of fear reveals itself as light. Say it until you feel courage rising. Say it until the roar of the lion fades into silence. Say it until you know that there are no beasts in divine mind, only angels waiting to serve. This is the second movement of burying fear, to face the lions without trembling, to see them for what they are, to declare their nothingness until their roar is silenced. And once you have done this, you are ready for the third and final movement of this day, the stillness that seals the burial, the poise that stands in the center of seeming chaos and declares, "I will not move, for God is with me." And that is where we shall go next. Now that you have named fear as the only enemy, and now that you have walked boldly into the lion's den and seen for yourself that its roar is nothing but smoke and its teeth are nothing but shadows, it is time to seal the burial. Because fear, like a ghost, thrives on repetition. It has no life of its own. It survives only because you keep speaking it, feeding it, rehearsing it. But once you stop feeding it, once you smash the record, once you declare its end, fear has no choice but to vanish into the nothingness from which it came. And the way you seal that burial is by decree. For the word spoken in faith is the final shovel of earth over the grave of fear. When you decree, you close the coffin of the old self and lock it shut. When you decree, you silence the whisper once and for all. This is why Scripture says, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." Fear makes you restless, running from one corner to another, panicking, scheming, exhausting yourself. But faith stands still. Faith declares, "It is done." Faith refuses to be moved by appearances, refuses to tremble at shadows, refuses to bow to roars. Faith takes its stand and speaks law. And when faith speaks, fear is buried. So let us speak now the decree that seals fear's grave. Say it with me aloud, not as a suggestion, not as a hopeful thought, but as law. I walk up to the lion and find an angel in armor. I am fearless, for God is with me. I bury every false record of fear. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. My record is only of faith, of courage, of divine certainty. I stand still, and I see the salvation of the Lord. Say it again. Let your subconscious hear it. Let your body feel it. Let your spirit rise to meet it. I walk up to the lion and find an angel in armor. I am fearless, for God is with me. I bury every false record of fear. Say it until the trembling in your chest is replaced by calm. Say it until the whisper of dread dissolves into silence. Say it until you know that the grave has been closed and fear cannot rise again. And now, beloved, notice what happens inside you as you speak. You may feel peace where there was panic. You may sense stillness where there was restlessness. You may even feel a strength rising in your bones, as if a great weight has been lifted. That is the proof that the burial has taken place. Fear is gone, faith has risen. The old self has lost its greatest weapon, and the new self has received its crown. This is not imagination. This is not theory. This is demonstration, and it is happening now in you as you speak. This is the third and final movement of day 2. To bury fear with decree, to silence its whisper forever, to inscribe faith as the only record left in your subconscious. And once you have done this, you are ready for the next stage of resurrection. For if fear was the chain that bound you, then poverty is the prison that held you. And tomorrow we will smash the chains of lack and step into the wealth that is already yours by divine right. Now that fear has been named, faced, and buried, we turn to the chain it always drags behind it, poverty. For poverty is not reality. It is not divine decree. It is not the will of God. Poverty is nothing more than a false record, a groove cut by careless words, fearful declarations, jokes made in ignorance, and confessions spoken in despair. Poverty is fear clothed in numbers, fear wearing the mask of empty purses and unpaid bills. It has no truth in it. It is not divine order. It is not your inheritance. It is a lie, and like all lies, it must be smashed. Consider the story of the wealthy woman who, though surrounded by abundance, continually repeated in jest, "I suppose I'm just getting ready for the poorhouse." She had jewels, fine clothes, a comfortable home, yet her tongue rehearsed poverty as if it were a joke. And what happened? The subconscious, faithful and exact, recorded her words as law. It did not say, "She is joking." It did not ask, "Does she mean it?" It only inscribed, "Poorhouse." And soon the joke became her life. Her fortune crumbled, her comfort slipped away, and she lived the very prophecy she had spoken. Poverty was not her fate, it was her record. And because she refused to change the record, the grooves played until they became her reality. How many of you are doing the same without even knowing it? How many times have you sighed, "I can't afford it," as if it were a harmless phrase? How many times have you muttered, "There's never enough," as if it were only a passing thought? How many times have you joked, "That would be just my luck, to end up broke," as if laughter could cancel the law? Beloved, those words are cutting grooves. Every one of them is a false record being engraved into your subconscious, and until you smash them, they will play on. Poverty is not written in your stars, it is written in your speech. And if it is written in your speech, it can be unwritten with your decree. This is why poverty is called a chain, because it binds you not with iron, but with repetition. Every time you rehearse it, the chain tightens. Every time you declare it, the chain grows heavier. But the chain is made of lies, and lies cannot hold against truth. The moment you declare, "This is not true, poverty is a false record," I smash it, I demolish it, I erase it, the chain shatters, the grooves are broken, and the melody of prosperity begins to play. For prosperity is not earned by struggle, nor lost by chance. It is the law of your being, and the moment you align with it, it flows. So let me set the stakes before you. If you continue to play the false record of poverty, you will remain chained to appearances, always behind, always lacking, always chasing. But if you dare to smash the record, to declare that poverty is a lie, to cut new grooves of abundance, then prosperity will flow to you as surely as water runs downhill. Not slowly, not grudgingly, but swiftly, generously, abundantly. For spirit is your source, and spirit never fails. Let us declare it together now, as the first blow against the chain. Poverty is a false record. I smash and demolish every untrue groove of lack in my subconscious. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now write new and perfect records of abundance, wealth, and divine supply. I am rich in every good and perfect gift. Say it until you feel the chain break. Say it until you sense the lie crumble. Say it until the word prosperity feels natural on your tongue. For it is your inheritance, your divine right, your true record waiting to be played. This is the first movement of day 3, to expose poverty as a false record, to see that it is not truth, not fate, not divine will, but only a groove cut by fear. And once you see it clearly, you can smash it, and the chain is broken, And then, with the chain shattered, you can turn to the source of true wealth, God Himself, your unfailing supply. And that is where we shall go next. Now that poverty has been exposed as a false record and its grooves shattered, we must turn to the higher truth that replaces it, for nature abhors a vacuum, and the subconscious must have a new record to play once the old is gone. That truth is this: God is your supply. Not man, not wages, not investments, not governments, not chance. God alone. And because God is infinite, your supply is infinite. Because God is unfailing, your supply is unfailing. Because God is present here and now, your supply is present here and now. This is the bedrock of prosperity, to stop looking at channels and start looking at the source. For channels may open and close, but the source never fails. Jobs may come and go, friends may give and withhold, markets may rise and fall. But behind all appearances stands the one unchanging fact: God is your supply, and He cannot fail. Most people remain chained to poverty because they mistake the channel for the source. They say, "My job is my supply, my salary is my supply, my business is my supply." And when the channel closes, they despair, believing their supply is gone. But hear me, the channel is not the source. The channel is only the pipeline, and if one closes, another will open, for the source is inexhaustible. To cling to one channel is to limit the Holy One of Israel. To trust the source is to know that supply will always find its way to you, by avenues you could never have arranged, in ways you could never have predicted, through means you did not see. That is why Florence taught, "God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways." Not, "My employer is my supply," not, "My savings are my supply," not, "My investments are my supply," but God is my supply. Let me give you a living example. A woman once came to me on the brink of disaster. She faced a lawsuit of $3,000, and she had not a penny to her name to pay it. Appearances shouted doom, friends counseled despair, and her own reasoning mind told her it was hopeless. But she chose to trust the law. She affirmed with faith, "God is my unfailing supply. This lawsuit is dissolved in divine order, and I am provided for under grace." She spoke it not as a wish, but as law. And within days, a relative, moved by unseen prompting, sent her the exact sum, unasked, unexpected, in perfect timing. The lawsuit was settled, the chain was broken, the proof was given. The channel was surprising, but the source was God, and the source never fails. Now think of yourself. How many times have you mistaken the channel for the source? How many times have you trembled when one door closed, forgetting that the house of God has infinite doors? How many times have you stared at the purse, forgetting that the purse is only a vessel and the treasure comes from Spirit? Beloved, release your fear of channels. Let go of the belief that one job, one person, one circumstance can bind your supply. Your wealth is divine, and because it is divine, it is unfailing. So let us speak it together now as law. God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways. I do not depend on channels. I depend on God. Channels may change, but God is unchanging. My supply is infinite, immediate, and secure. Say it until your heart believes it. Say it until you feel the chains of dependency fall away. Say it until you know with certainty that you can never be without, because God Himself is your source, and He cannot fail. This is the second movement of Day 3. To replace the lie of poverty with the truth of supply, to stop clinging to channels and start trusting the source, to engrave into your subconscious the unshakable record: God is my unfailing supply. And once this record begins to play, money flows, doors open, provision comes, and the fear of lack is buried forever. And now, having established God as your source, you are ready to see how this supply multiplies. Not through struggle, not through scheming, but through the law of blessing and gratitude. And that is where we will go next. And now, beloved, having shattered the false record of poverty and inscribed the truth that God alone is your unfailing supply, we must look at the mystery of multiplication, the way in which Spirit takes the little you hold and causes it to grow until it overflows. For many stand at the threshold of prosperity and say, "I believe God is my supply, but look, I have only a few coins, only a few dollars, only a small beginning. How can this ever be enough?" And I tell you, it is never the amount in your hand that matters. It is the decree upon your lips, the blessing in your heart, the gratitude you speak that multiplies what you have until it becomes more than enough. The purse in your hand may look empty, but the purse of your subconscious can be crammed and jammed with supply. And when you declare it so, life will pour wealth into your affairs in ways you cannot foresee. Florence told the story of a woman who had only $2 left. By every appearance, she was at the end of her rope. Reason said, "This is all you have. Guard it, stretch it, shrink your life to fit it." But she refused to bow to appearances. Instead, she blessed those $2 and spoke the decree. "My purse is crammed, jammed with money. I am supplied under grace, in perfect ways." She carried the bills in her purse as if they represented a fortune, blessing them, giving thanks for them, declaring their multiplication. And what happened? Those $2 multiplied into 6,000, not by chance, not by luck, but by law. The decree engraved a new record in her subconscious. The record began to play, and the demonstration followed. The purse that looked nearly empty became a channel of overflow because she refused to call it lack and insisted on calling it abundance. Do you see the lesson? Poverty complains, but prosperity blesses. Poverty curses the little and sees it shrink. Prosperity blesses the little and sees it grow. Poverty looks at the purse and sighs, "Not enough." Prosperity looks at the purse and declares, "This is the seed of plenty." And the subconscious, faithful as ever, obeys whichever decree is given. If you say, "I never have enough," it plays back shortage. If you say, "My purse is jammed with money," it plays back abundance. The law does not ask if you are joking. The law does not ask if you can imagine how it will happen. The law only says, "What you decree, I engrave. What I engrave, I play. What I play, you live." So let me ask you, what have you been declaring about your purse, your wallet, your bank account? Have you been sighing over bills, rehearsing lack, repeating the false record of never enough? Or will you dare to take even the smallest coin in your hand and declare it multiplied, blessed, and overflowing? The choice is yours, and the law will obey whichever decree you give. So let us speak it now as the decree of multiplication. My purse is crammed, jammed with money. I am supplied under grace, in perfect ways. Every bill I bless multiplies. Every dollar I touch is increased. I give thanks, and money flows to me in avalanches of abundance. Say it until you feel your purse grow heavy in your imagination. Say it until your heart stirs with gratitude for the wealth already unfolding. Say it until you know that supply is not coming. It is here, flowing, multiplying, expanding. This is the third movement of day 3. To bless the little, to decree its multiplication, to carry the purse of your mind as overflowing even when appearances whisper lack. And once you have done this, the chain of poverty is not only broken, but buried, and the song of prosperity begins to play. For now you are no longer a slave to appearances, no longer chained to fear of lack, but a master of abundance, drawing supply from the infinite source of God. And with poverty buried and prosperity rising, we are ready for the next stage of resurrection. For just as fear left its grooves in your body as weakness and sickness, so now must those false records be smashed, and the record of health inscribed. And that is where we will go next. Now that you have seen how poverty is nothing but a false record, and prosperity is the true decree of Spirit, you must understand that the same law governs the body. For the body is not random, it is not cursed, it is not independent of the mind. The body is the great record player of the subconscious. Whatever grooves have been cut into your inner self, the body plays them outward in flesh and bone, in nerves and blood, in strength or weakness, in vitality or decay. The aches, the illnesses, the frailties you have endured are not punishments from heaven, nor accidents of fate. They are the playback of false records engraved through fear, complaint, and careless words. And until those grooves are smashed, until the record is broken, the body will keep playing the same tune. Think of how often people speak sickness into themselves without even realizing it. They say, "I always catch the flu this time of year." They say, "I have such a weak stomach, such a weak back, such weak nerves." They say, "It runs in my family. I suppose it will run in me." Each of those phrases cuts another groove, and the subconscious plays it faithfully until the body itself begins to obey. And then they say, "You see? I was right." But they were not right. They were rehearsing a falsehood until it became their experience. The record did not prove them correct. It enslaved them to their own words. I recall a student who lived in constant fear of a disease she had read about. She studied the symptoms, repeated them aloud, described them to her friends, and said over and over, "I just know I'll get it. I always get whatever is going around." Her friends laughed, but the subconscious did not. It recorded her words, and soon enough her body began to manifest the very symptoms she feared. She was not attacked by the disease. She engraved it into her own record. But when she learned the law, when she was taught to smash the false grooves and declare, "I am a perfect child of God, and every atom of my body is filled with life and light," her body reversed its course. The symptoms faded, her strength returned, and health rose up to meet her words of truth. This is the law. The body is a servant, never a master. It takes its orders from the record that plays. If you speak weakness, weakness will manifest. If you speak strength, strength will rise. If you speak disease, the cells will obey. If you speak health, the flesh will align. The body cannot resist the decree. It only plays what it is given. That is why you must become ruthless in smashing the false records of sickness. You must refuse to joke about illness, refuse to confess weakness, refuse to declare decline. For every such word is a groove cut into the record, and the record will be played until it is destroyed. Let me set the stakes clearly. If you continue to let the false records play unchecked, you will keep marching to the melody of weakness, keep living in the rhythm of disease, keep obeying the grooves of fear. But if you dare to smash them, if you dare to speak new records, if you dare to declare, "My body is strong, my body is whole, my body is the temple of divine life," then the music of your flesh will change, and health will rise like the sun. For sickness is not truth. It is only a false groove, and false grooves can be erased. So let us strike the first blow together. Speak this aloud with me now. I smash and demolish every untrue record of sickness in my subconscious. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now make new and perfect records of health, of strength, of vitality, of divine perfection. Every atom of my body vibrates with the life of spirit, and I am whole. Say it until you feel your body respond. Say it until the heaviness lifts. Say it until you sense new strength rising in your bones, new life flowing in your blood. For your body is only the servant of your word, and when the word changes, the body must obey. This is the first movement of Day 4, to see the body as the record player of the subconscious, to recognize that sickness is not fate but false grooves, to smash those grooves with decree, and to begin writing the new record of life. And once you have understood this, you are ready for the next movement, to speak words of life deliberately, to declare strength where weakness has been, to command health until the body itself is lifted into newness. And that is where we shall go next. Now that you have seen the body as nothing but a record player of the subconscious, you must learn the power of the words you speak into it. For if the body is the servant, then the word is the command. If the body is the phonograph, then the tongue is the needle. Every word you speak cuts a groove, and that groove is played until another word smashes it. This is why the scriptures declare, "Let the weak say, I am strong." Notice the command. It does not say, "Let the weak describe their weakness." It does not say, "Let the weak complain, sigh, and give voice to appearances." It says, "Let the weak say, I am strong." Why? Because the word spoken in faith does not describe, it creates. The weak who complain remain weak, for they engrave their frailty deeper. But the weak who say, I am strong, cut a new record, and the body rises to meet the decree. I recall a student who lived in constant fear of illness. She watched others fall sick and would declare, "I always catch whatever is going around." She spoke it so often that her body obeyed her word like a servant. Every season, she fell ill as predicted, not because disease was fated, but because her tongue had written the groove. But when she learned the law, when she was taught to change her words, to declare health instead of sickness, everything shifted. She began to say daily, "I am strong, I am whole, I am filled with divine life." And soon her body aligned with the new decree. The old cycle was broken, the false record erased, and she found herself healthy, vibrant, and free. This is why you must become vigilant about your speech concerning the body. Do not rehearse symptoms. Do not tell the story of your pains to every ear that will listen. Do not declare weakness, for every such word engraves the groove deeper. If you must speak, speak only life. If you must describe, describe health. If you must declare, declare strength. For your body does not know the difference between words spoken in jest, words spoken in fear, or words spoken in faith. It only knows the word, and the word is law. So let us take up the practice now. Place your hand upon your chest and speak aloud. Every atom of my body is filled with divine light. Every cell vibrates with divine health. Every organ is strong. Every function is perfect. Every part is whole. I am strong. I am well. I am radiant with life. Say it slowly, deliberately, letting each word cut a groove of health into your subconscious. Speak it not as a wish, but as a decree. Speak it until your body itself begins to respond, until you feel the weight of weakness lifting, until your spirit rises with certainty that you are whole. Do you see how powerful this is? Where the false self once spoke sickness into existence, the true self now speaks health. Where the old record once played weakness, the new record now plays strength. And the body, faithful and obedient, must echo the new song. For the law is exact, the body is the reflection of the word. Speak sickness, and sickness comes. Speak health, and health manifests. The choice is yours, and the law cannot fail. This is the second movement of Day 4, to replace every word of complaint with a word of life, to speak health into your body until the grooves are cut deep, to refuse to let weakness have the last word. And once you have learned this, you are ready for the third movement, to inscribe the final decree that seals the record of health forever, so that sickness is not only silenced, but erased from your subconscious completely. And that is where we will go next. And now, beloved, having seen that the body is nothing but the record player of the subconscious, and having learned how every word spoken engraves grooves of health or sickness, we come to the final act of this day, the decree of health. For it is not enough to expose the lie, not enough to refuse the complaint, not enough to stop rehearsing the false record. You must engrave the new record so deeply that it becomes the only song your body knows how to play. You must take the pen of your tongue and cut into the subconscious the melody of life so firmly, so surely, that every atom, every cell, every organ, every function vibrates with the rhythm of divine perfection. This is not imagination, it is law. The scriptures themselves declare, "I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord." They command, "Let the weak say, I am strong." They remind us, "I am the Lord that healeth thee." Notice the pattern: life, strength, healing, always spoken, always declared, always affirmed. Never does Spirit instruct us to complain about sickness, Never does Spirit tell us to describe symptoms. Never does Spirit command us to bow to appearances. Always the command is to speak life, to declare health, to affirm perfection. Why? Because the word engraves the record, and the body plays it back without resistance. Let me give you an example. A man once came to me weak and discouraged, convinced his body was failing him. He rehearsed his symptoms to anyone who would listen. He spoke daily of his aches. He even joked that he was falling apart. But I gave him a new decree and told him to speak it morning and night. Every atom of my body is filled with divine light, divine love, and divine perfection. I am strong. I am whole. I am well. At first, he felt foolish. At first, his body seemed no different. But he obeyed. He spoke it as law. And little by little, strength returned, vitality increased, the symptoms faded, and he found himself healthier than he had been in years. The body had obeyed the new record. The grooves of sickness were erased, and the grooves of health began to play. So let us speak that same decree together now, as the final sealing act of this day. Say it aloud with me. Every atom of my body is filled with divine light, divine love, and divine perfection. I am strong. I am whole. I am well. I now smash and demolish every untrue record of sickness in my subconscious mind. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I now write new and perfect records of radiant health, endless energy, and divine strength. Speak it slowly with authority, as if every word were chiseling truth into the stone of your being. Speak it until you feel the rhythm of health echo through your body. Speak it until the fear of sickness no longer finds a foothold. Speak it until your body itself begins to hum with new life. Do you see how complete this is? On day 4, you have taken the body, the very instrument the old self tried to chain with fear, and you have smashed its false grooves. You have named sickness a lie. You have refused complaint. You have spoken only life, and you have sealed it all with the decree of health. This is not suggestion. This is not hope. This is law. The false self is dying, and the new self is rising in strength, in vitality, in radiance. This completes the 4th step of your resurrection. Fear has been buried. Poverty has been broken. Sickness has been smashed, and you are standing taller in truth than ever before. And now, as we move into the next stage, we must address the weight that binds so many, the chains of resentment, the grooves of unforgiveness, the records of old hurts and debts unpaid. For until forgiveness erases the past, the new record cannot fully play, and that is where we shall go next. Now, beloved, as we rise further into the resurrection of the new self, we must confront another chain that holds countless souls in bondage, the weight of unforgiveness, the grooves of resentment, the false records of wrongs rehearsed. For fear has been buried, poverty has been broken, sickness has been healed, and yet many still stumble because they carry the burden of bitterness in their subconscious. They repeat the old hurts, they rehearse the injustices, they replay the debts, and every repetition engraves the record deeper. These grooves of unforgiveness play back as repeated misfortune, as blocked good, as cycles of disappointment that will not end. And until those grooves are erased, the past will keep marching into the present, dragging the old self forward like a corpse that refuses to stay buried. This is why I tell you today, forgiveness is not a favor you do for another. It is the law of freedom you grant yourself. For the law is exact and karma cannot be fooled. Whatever you sow returns. If you sow resentment, resentment returns. If you sow anger, anger returns. If you sow betrayal, betrayal comes knocking. Every thought, every word, every act is a seed planted in the garden of your subconscious, and that garden never fails to bring forth fruit. This is why the scriptures declare, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." It is not a threat, it is a law, exact, unchanging, impartial. Let me show you this with clarity. A man once lied and deceived in his business. For a season, it looked as though he prospered, but soon he was surrounded by others who lied to him, who cheated him, who broke his trust. His harvest had come in. Another woman betrayed a friend in selfishness, and later she found herself betrayed by one she trusted most. The law was exact. The grooves of deceit she cut into another's record were played back into her own. Karma is not punishment from God. It is the echo of your own word and deed returning to you multiplied. And until forgiveness is spoken, until the grooves are erased, the echo continues. But here is the mercy. Forgiveness cancels the debt. Forgiveness erases the groove. Forgiveness takes the record of wrongs, smashes it, and returns it to the dust of nothingness. For resentment is only a false record, kept alive by your agreement. The moment you declare, I release it, I forgive, I let it go, the grooves dissolve, and the cycle is broken. The past no longer marches into the present. The corpse of old hurts is finally buried, and the new self is free to rise unencumbered. I know some of you hesitate here. You say, but Florence, they wronged me. They do not deserve my forgiveness. Hear me. Forgiveness is not about deserving. Forgiveness is about freedom. If you refuse to forgive, you keep yourself chained to the false record. If you release them, you release yourself. You cannot walk into resurrection dragging the chains of bitterness behind you. The new self cannot rise until the grooves of the past are erased, and forgiveness is the law that erases them. So let us take the first step today. Speak it aloud, even if your reasoning mind resists. I sow only truth, only love, only abundance, and I reap the same. Every wrong record of resentment, anger, and betrayal is smashed. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. I am free, and all others are free. I release the past, and I reap only good. Say it until you feel the weight begin to lift. Say it until the anger loosens its grip. Say it until your heart knows that resentment is not your master, that bitterness is not your inheritance, that karma is not your jailer when forgiveness holds the key. This is the first movement of Day 5, to see that karma is exact, that every word and deed returns, that unforgiveness keeps the false self alive. But once you know this, you also know the mercy. Forgiveness cancels the debt. Forgiveness erases the grooves. Forgiveness buries the past. And that is where we will go next. Now that you see karma as exact, and that every wrong word and deed returns to its sower, you must understand the divine mercy built into the law, forgiveness. For if the law of sowing and reaping were the only law, we would all be bound endlessly to cycles of error, reaping again and again what was planted in ignorance, unable to escape. But the mercy of God provides an eraser for the grooves, a hammer for the false record, a key for the chains of karma, and that eraser, that hammer, that key is forgiveness. For when you forgive, you cancel the debt. When you forgive, you declare, this record is false, it has no more power, it returns to the dust of nothingness. And the law, exact and impartial, obeys. I recall a student who came to me weary, saying, Florence, every time I make progress, some disaster pulls me back. I take a step forward, and then I stumble 2 steps behind. What is wrong with me? And as we looked deeper, it became clear. She carried a long-standing resentment toward a woman who had wronged her years before. Though she spoke affirmations of prosperity, though she prayed for success, the grooves of unforgiveness kept replaying, cutting into her affairs, pulling her back into old patterns. I told her plainly, you must forgive. You must release her completely, not for her sake, but for your own. She resisted at first, saying, but she does not deserve it. And I told her again, forgiveness is not about what they deserve. It is about what you deserve. You deserve freedom, and only forgiveness can give it. At last, she obeyed. She spoke the decree. I forgive everyone, and I am forgiven. I am free, and all others are free. and within days, the cycle of setbacks ended. Her affairs straightened, doors opened, and she walked forward unhindered. The debt was canceled, the groove erased, and her life was free. Do you see how powerful this is? Every resentment you carry is like a debt written in your subconscious. It demands repayment, not because God is punishing you, but because the record is still playing. And until it is smashed, you will keep reliving the echo of the past. But forgiveness is the decree that smashes the record. Forgiveness cancels the debt. Forgiveness says, "This groove has no more power, it is erased. I am free, and so are they." And the moment you say it, the moment you mean it, the law obeys. The groove dissolves, the cycle ends, the chain breaks. So I must ask you now, who are you still carrying in your subconscious? What face do you still see when you think of wrong? What memory do you still replay when you lie awake at night? What bitterness rises unbidden when you speak of the past? Beloved, that is the false record, and it is time to smash it. It is time to release them, to release yourself, to declare the debt canceled once and for all. Let us speak the decree together now. I forgive everyone, and I am forgiven. I am free, and all others are free. I release every record of resentment, of bitterness, of hurt, of debt. They return to the dust of nothingness, for they were never true. Only love remains. Only freedom remains. Only truth remains. Speak it slowly, deliberately, letting each phrase cut into the subconscious. Speak it until you feel the burden lift, until you sense the chain fall, until you know the debt is canceled. For it is not the memory that binds you, it is the groove. And the groove can be erased with forgiveness. This is the second movement of Day 5. To see that forgiveness is the mercy of the law. To understand that it cancels every debt. To declare freedom for yourself and others until the past no longer echoes in the present. And once you have done this, once you have spoken forgiveness into being, you are ready for the final act of this day. To plant new seeds, to sow new records deliberately, so that your harvest from this moment on is only of love, of joy, of abundance. And that is where we will go next. And now, beloved, having seen that karma is exact and that forgiveness cancels every debt, we must not stop with the erasing of grooves. For forgiveness is the great clearing, the sweeping away of weeds, the cleansing of the field. But a field once cleared cannot remain empty. If you do not plant deliberately, the old weeds will return, the old grooves will try to reform, the old patterns will creep back in. You must sow new seeds. You must cut new grooves. You must engrave new records of truth, of love, of abundance, of joy. This is the law of substitution. What is cast out must be replaced. What is erased must be rewritten. What is buried must be followed by resurrection. Forgiveness tears up the roots of resentment, but now you must plant the seeds of blessing. Think of it. Every word you speak is a seed. Every thought you choose to dwell on is a seed. Every declaration you repeat is a seed, and the subconscious is the soil, faithful and fertile, bringing forth whatever is planted. If you sow bitterness, bitterness grows. If you sow complaint, complaint multiplies. But if you sow blessing, blessing blossoms. If you sow love, love returns in harvest. If you sow abundance, abundance flows into your life in ways you could never arrange. The soil does not ask if you meant it. The soil does not ask if you understand it. The soil only receives what is planted and multiplies it. I recall a woman who had lived for years in bitterness toward a man who had wronged her. She finally obeyed the law of forgiveness and released him. But I told her, do not stop there. Now plant new seeds. Speak blessings where once you spoke curses. Declare abundance where once you declared lack. Sow love where once you sowed resentment. She obeyed, and soon her whole life turned. She attracted new friends, her business prospered, her health improved, and she said to me, I feel as though I am living in a different world. And I told her, you are. You are living in the harvest of new seeds. So I ask you now, What seeds will you plant in the soil you have cleared with forgiveness? Will you sow truth, or will you let weeds of fear return? Will you sow love, or will you let resentment creep back in? Will you sow abundance, or will you mutter lack again? The choice is yours, and the soil will bring forth whatever you decide. Let us take this moment to sow deliberately. Speak this decree with me. I sow only truth, only love, only abundance, only joy. I bless everyone, and I am blessed. I speak wealth, and wealth returns. I speak health, and health manifests. I speak love, and love surrounds me. I speak joy, and joy overflows. I now plant new seeds, and my harvest is good, abundant, and sure. Say it until you feel the ground of your subconscious receive it. Say it until you know the field is sown. Say it until your whole being resonates with the rhythm of new life taking root. This is the third movement of Day 5. Not only to erase the grooves of the past, not only to cancel the debts of resentment, but to plant new seeds deliberately, consciously, joyfully. For forgiveness clears the soil, but sowing ensures the harvest. And from this moment forward, your harvest shall be of truth, of love, of abundance, of joy. The old self is buried, the past is erased, and the new self is sowing its own destiny with every word. And now, with forgiveness complete and new seeds planted, we are ready for the sixth stage of resurrection, the secret door to success. For even with fear buried, poverty broken, health restored, and forgiveness spoken, many still stand before locked doors, wondering why success eludes them. And the answer lies in learning the law that opens the hidden door, the preparation of faith, the dissolving of envy, the discipline of silence. And that is where we will go next. Now that the false self has been exposed and the records of fear, poverty, sickness, and resentment have been smashed, you are closer than ever to living as your true self. But there is yet another barrier that must be torn down if the new self is to walk freely into its promised land, and that barrier is envy. For envy is the silent thief of success, the locked gate that keeps you standing outside while others seem to enter. Many people pray for prosperity, they affirm for health, they declare love, but secretly they are resentful of the good they see in others. They look at a neighbor's success and mutter, "Why them and not me?" They look at another's blessing and whisper, "It isn't fair." And those whispers, those mutterings, those quiet resentments cut grooves into the subconscious. Grooves of separation, grooves of lack, grooves that shut the very doors they long to open. Hear me. You cannot resent another's blessing and expect your own. You cannot envy another's harvest and expect your field to flourish. The law is exact. Whatever you send out returns. If you send out resentment, resentment returns. If you send out blessing, blessing returns. That is why Florence taught one of the most powerful decrees of all. What God has done for others, He now does for me and more. Do you feel the power of that? Instead of looking at another's success as proof of your lack, you look at it as a prophecy of your own. Instead of saying, "Why them and not me?" you say, "Them today, me tomorrow, and even more, under grace, in perfect ways." This dissolves envy, it erases the false record of resentment, and it engraves a new record of expectation. I recall a woman who came to me bitter because her friend had received a beautiful gift she had long desired. She said, "It seems unfair. I wanted it. I prayed for it. But she received it." I told her, "Do not resent her gift. Bless it. Declare that what God has done for her, He now does for you and more." She obeyed. She repeated the decree. She dissolved her resentment. She blessed her friend sincerely. And what happened? Soon she received the very same gift, and in addition, something even more splendid. Envy had kept the door locked. Blessing opened it wide. So I ask you now, where has envy been hiding in your heart? Who have you secretly resented? Whose blessing have you counted as your own loss? See it clearly. For that envy is the barrier, the locked door. And once you name it, once you dissolve it, once you replace it with blessing, the door will swing open and your own good will come rushing through. Let us declare it together now, as the decree that dissolves envy and opens the secret door. What God has done for others, He now does for me and more. I bless every good I see. I rejoice in every blessing around me. There is no competition, no rivalry, no separation. God's supply is infinite, and what is mine cannot be withheld. The door of success is open to me now. Say it slowly, with faith, until you feel the resentment dissolve, until you sense the jealousy lift, until you know that another's good is proof of your own. This is the first movement of Day 6, to dissolve envy, to replace resentment with blessing, to see another's prosperity not as your loss, but as your prophecy. And once envy is gone, once the heart is free from bitterness, you are ready for the second movement. To prepare in faith, to act as though your good is already here, to set your house in order so that the door of success may open wide. And that is where we will go next. Now that envy has been dissolved and the heart has been cleansed of resentment, the next step in opening the secret door to success is preparation. For faith does not merely sit idle, waiting with folded hands for a blessing to drop from the sky. Faith acts. Faith prepares. Faith moves as though the thing desired is already on the way. This is why Scripture commands, "Make this valley full of ditches." The people were parched in the desert, dying of thirst, with not a cloud in sight. And yet the prophet told them to dig ditches in the sand as if the water were already flowing. It looked foolish to the reasoning mind, but to spirit it was the act of faith that unlocked the supply. And sure enough, the next day the ditches were filled with water. The preparation made way for the demonstration. This is the law. You must prepare before you see. You must act as though the thing you have decreed is already here, for that action engraves the new record even deeper into your subconscious. The body may doubt, the reasoning mind may scoff, appearances may sneer, but the act of faith silences them all. It says to your inner being, this is not a hope, it is a certainty. And when the subconscious receives that certainty, it begins to play it outward until the demonstration appears. Let me give you a story. A man once longed to take a journey abroad but had no money to afford it. Every appearance said it was impossible, yet he refused to bow to appearances. He went out and bought a trunk for the trip, though he had no ticket, no plans, no means. Friends mocked him, saying he was foolish. But he said, "I am preparing, for the law is already working." And within weeks, the way opened miraculously. The trip was provided, the journey was taken, the dream fulfilled. The trunk had been his ditch in the desert, his act of faith, and it unlocked the supply. So I ask you, what ditches are you digging? What trunks are you buying? What steps of preparation are you taking to prove to your subconscious that you expect the blessing? If you are affirming for a home, are you preparing the space, putting your house in order, clearing the way? If you are affirming for work, are you readying your tools, sharpening your skills, setting yourself as if the call were already made? If you are affirming for love, are you making room in your life, preparing your heart, ordering your days as if companionship were already at your side? The law cannot fill ditches you have not dug. The door cannot open if you are not standing ready to walk through it. Let us speak it together as a vow of readiness. I prepare in faith. I act as though my good is already here. I make the valley full of ditches. I set my house in order. I ready my purse, my body, my heart, my life. I prove my faith by my preparation, and my demonstration arrives under grace, in perfect ways. Speak it slowly, deliberately, until you feel the shift from waiting to readiness. Speak it until you sense the new grooves being cut, the grooves of expectancy, the grooves of preparedness, the grooves of certainty. For the subconscious hears not only your words, but your actions, and when both agree, the record is engraved deeper than ever before. This is the second movement of Day 6, to prepare in faith. to act before you see, to demonstrate expectancy through deeds as well as words. And once you have done this, once envy has dissolved and preparation has been made, you are ready for the third and final movement, to shout down the walls of lack and delay, to tear down every barrier that has seemed to block your success, and to march boldly through the secret door into your promised land, and that is where we will go next. Now that you have dissolved envy and prepared in faith, you must take the final step, shouting down the walls that appear to block your success. For every soul on the verge of breakthrough encounters these walls. Walls of delay, walls of resistance, walls of doubt, walls of appearances that say, "The door is shut and you shall not pass." These walls are not real. They are the last shadows of the false self, the final echoes of old grooves trying to hold you back. And like the walls of Jericho, they will fall not by might, not by struggle, not by reasoning, but by decree, by praise, by the spoken word sounded in rhythm with faith. Remember the story. Joshua and the people of Israel stood before the walls of Jericho, an impenetrable fortress barring them from their promised land. By every appearance, it was hopeless. The walls were too high, too thick, too strong. Yet God gave them a strange command, not to batter the walls, not to scale them, not to tunnel beneath them, but to march around them in silence for 7 days, and on the 7th day to shout. And when they obeyed, when their decree of praise filled the air, the walls crumbled of their own accord, and the city was theirs. Do you see the lesson? Success is not gained by battering at locked doors, but by shouting down the walls of disbelief that stand within you. The walls of Jericho are the grooves of doubt, and when you decree, when you praise, when you affirm with faith, they collapse. I recall a student who stood at the edge of her dream. She had prepared, she had spoken her decrees, she had dissolved envy, and yet the door still seemed shut. Every letter of application was returned unopened. Every attempt to enter was blocked. She came to me in despair, and I told her, "Do not strive against the wall. Shout it down. Affirm daily. The walls of lack and delay crumble away, and I enter my promised land under grace and in perfect ways." Say it not in doubt, but in triumph, as though the wall were already rubble at your feet. She obeyed. She declared it with rhythm and certainty. And within a week, the barrier dissolved. The door opened. The opportunity came by a channel she had never considered. The walls fell, and she walked through. So let me ask you, what walls are you standing before today? Is it the wall of a closed career? The wall of financial delay? The wall of discouragement whispering that success is for others but not for you? Whatever it is, see it clearly for what it is, a shadow, not substance. The law of your word is greater than any wall. When you decree, when you praise, when you sound the trumpet of faith, the walls must fall. Let us speak the decree now, as the shout that shakes down Jericho. The walls of lack and delay crumble away. I enter my promised land under grace and in perfect ways. No barrier can stand before my word. No wall can resist the power of my decree. I am in my right place, doing my right work, with right success, and nothing can stop me. Speak it not timidly but triumphantly, as though the wall is already dust beneath your feet. Speak it with rhythm, with force, with certainty. Speak it until you feel the resistance melt, until you sense the door opening, until you know that you are already walking in your promised land. This is the third movement of Day 6, to shout down the walls of Jericho, to decree the end of delay, to declare the crumbling of every barrier, and to step boldly through the secret door of success. And now, with the walls fallen and the door open, you are ready for the 7th and final day, the resurrection itself. For the old self is now buried, and the new self must rise into perfect self-expression, the life God designed from the beginning, and that is where we will go next. And now, beloved, we have come to the 7th day, the day of resurrection, the day when the old self is not only buried, but replaced by the rising of the true self. Every day until now has been preparation, exposing the false self, burying fear, breaking poverty, healing the body, erasing the past, and opening the secret door to success. But today is different. Today you rise. Today you step into the divine design that has always been waiting for you. For there is a pattern for your life, a perfect plan, a design woven by infinite mind long before appearances whispered lack or fear or sickness or failure. And that pattern has never been destroyed. It has never been altered. It has never been erased. It is written in the heart of God, and it is waiting for you to step into it. You may have thought that life was random, that you were tossed about by chance, that your struggles defined you. But hear me clearly. Nothing of your past has touched the divine design. Every false record was only a shadow, and shadows do not alter the blueprint. Just as clouds cannot erase the sun, just as fog cannot blot out the stars, the lies of the old self cannot change the truth of who you are. There is a right place for you, and it is prepared. There is a right work for you, and it is waiting. There is a right life for you, and it is unfolding even now. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not adrift. You are divinely designed, and today you rise into that design. Let me give you an example. A young woman once came to me in desperation, clinging to the wrong partner. She said, "Florence, if I cannot have him, I will never be happy." But I knew he was not hers by divine right. He was a shadow, a false groove, an echo of her fear. I taught her to declare instead, "If this is mine, it is mine now. If it is not, its perfect substitute now appears." She resisted at first, but then she surrendered. And what happened? The wrong man drifted away, and soon the right one appeared, the one who was hers by divine design, the one who loved her, cherished her, married her, and gave her joy beyond what she had imagined. The false self wanted the shadow, but the true self rose into the pattern. The divine design prevailed. Do you see? The divine design is always better than the false groove. What is yours cannot be withheld. What is not yours cannot be forced. If you cling to the wrong, you block the right. If you release the wrong, the right rushes in. The false self lives on substitutes. The true self waits for substance. The false self clutches at shadows. The true self rests in the design. And once you know this, once you believe this, once you decree this, the resurrection is complete. You rise into the life that was always yours. So let us declare it now as the decree of resurrection. What is mine by divine right cannot be withheld. What is not mine is taken from me, and its perfect substitute now appears. I am divinely designed, and my perfect place, my perfect work, my perfect life unfold now, under grace, in perfect ways. Say it with certainty, not as a request, but as a recognition. Say it until you feel the false desires loosen their grip. Say it until you sense the wrong fading and the right drawing near. Say it until you know that the divine design is the only record left in your subconscious, and it is playing now. This is the first movement of Day 7, to recognize that there is a divine design for your life, that it cannot be destroyed, that it cannot be withheld, that it is already yours by right. And once you recognize it, you are ready for the second movement, to follow the inner guidance that leads you step by step into that design, the still small voice that never errs, the intuition that is the voice of God within you. And that is where we will go next. Now that you have recognized there is a divine design for your life, a perfect pattern of place, work, and expression, you must learn the way to walk into it, and that way is intuition. For the resurrected self does not grope blindly in the dark, nor does it chase after shadows with restless striving. The resurrected self listens. The resurrected self obeys. The resurrected self follows the still small voice of spirit within, that inner guide that whispers, "This is the way, walk ye in it." Prayer is calling upon God, but intuition is God's reply. And if you will train yourself to hear and to obey, Your life will unfold in harmony, step by step, door by door, until you find yourself standing in the very center of your perfect design. Most people are deaf to intuition because they are too busy listening to appearances, to fear, to reason. They say, "I will decide when I have enough evidence. I will act when I can see every detail." But intuition never gives the whole map. It gives the next step. Intuition whispers, "Do this," and if you obey, the way clears. But if you argue, if you delay, if you resist, the channel closes and the blessing waits. This is why I say, intuition is the voice of God in your soul, and instant obedience is the proof of faith. The resurrected self does not argue with the voice, it follows it. Let me give you a story. A woman once found herself with only $8 to her name. By every appearance she was destitute, and reason told her to hoard it, to stretch it, to shrink her life to fit her poverty. But she felt an inner nudge to go home rather than linger in despair. It made no sense, yet she obeyed. And when she arrived, she found a letter waiting for her. A letter that delivered thousands of dollars, her supply in perfect timing. Had she resisted the nudge, had she ignored the whisper, had she stayed away in hopelessness, she would have missed it. But because she obeyed, the channel opened and the blessing flowed. Intuition had led her to the door, and instant obedience had turned the key. This is how spirit works. The blessing may not come by the channel you expect. It may not look like the plan you imagined, but the inner voice knows the way. It may say, "Go here," or "Call them," or "Wait now," or "Step forward today." The reasoning mind may scoff, but the subconscious obeys. And if you follow, you will find provision where you least expected, opportunities where you thought none existed, friends and allies waiting where once you saw only strangers. The divine design is hidden from sight, but the still small voice reveals it, step by step, if only you will follow. So let us declare it together as a vow of guidance. I am divinely sensitive to my intuitive leads. I hear the still small voice, and I give it instant obedience. Every nudge is the voice of God. Every whisper is a step into my divine design. I follow without hesitation, and I am led to my perfect place, my perfect work, my perfect life. Speak it until you feel the certainty that you are never lost, never alone, never without direction. Speak it until you trust the whisper more than appearances. Speak it until you know that every step is guided and that guidance will never fail. This is the second movement of Day 7, to follow intuition, to hear the still small voice, to give it instant obedience, and to walk in the unfolding path of your divine design. And once you have learned this, once you are walking in faith guided by Spirit, you are ready for the final movement. To rise fully into your perfect self-expression, to live not as the shadow of the false self, but as the radiant expression of the true self, whole, fearless, prosperous, loving, and free. And that is where we will go next. And now, beloved, we have come to the end of the cycle, the 7th day, the day of rising, the day of crowning, the day when the work is finished and the new life begins. Every day until now has been a death and a burial. The death of fear, the death of lack, the death of sickness, the death of resentment, the death of envy, the death of delay. Each day has smashed another false groove, buried another lie, erased another record of the old self. And now there is nothing left but resurrection. Nothing left but the rising of the true self into its perfect self-expression. For this is the purpose of all spiritual law, not merely to remove what is false, but to reveal what is true, not merely to bury the old, but to raise the new, not merely to demolish the shadow, but to bring forth the substance. The divine design is already written. You are not here to struggle to invent yourself, to cobble together a life out of scraps of chance. You are here to reveal the life that was written for you from the beginning. Your perfect work, your perfect place, your perfect relationships, your perfect expression, all of it already exists in the mind of God. And as you smash the false records, as you listen to intuition, as you follow the inner voice, that design unfolds naturally, like a flower opening to the sun. You do not need to force it. You do not need to beg for it. You need only to declare it, to trust it, to live as though it is already yours, for it is. I recall a man who struggled for years in a job that drained him, a place that did not fit his gifts. He prayed, he affirmed, he begged for change, but he remained stuck, until one day he dared to speak the decree. I now express my perfect self, in my perfect place, doing my perfect work with perfect joy. He spoke it daily, not as a wish, but as a law. And soon, circumstances shifted. An opportunity opened that matched his gifts perfectly. His joy was restored, and his prosperity increased. What had changed? Not the world, but his word. The false record of drudgery was smashed, the new record of expression was engraved, and the body, the mind, the affairs of his life played it back faithfully. So now I ask you, will you dare to declare your perfect self? Will you dare to release the last shreds of the old identity, the last tatters of the false self, and rise into the radiant expression of the divine design? This is the moment of crowning. This is the moment of resurrection. This is the moment when you no longer live as the shadow of fear, lack, sickness, and sorrow, but as the living, breathing, shining expression of God's perfect idea of you. Let us speak it together now as the final decree, the sealing word of resurrection. I now express my perfect self, in my perfect place, doing my perfect work with perfect joy. Every false record has been smashed. Every chain has been broken. Every shadow has been buried. I rise new, whole, fearless, prosperous, and free. My divine design unfolds now, under grace, in perfect ways. Speak it with triumph. Speak it with certainty. Speak it as though you are already standing in your promised land, for you are. Say it until you feel the truth of it vibrating in every cell of your being. Say it until you know beyond doubt that the old self is gone and the new self has risen. This is the third and final movement of Day 7, to declare your perfect self-expression, to crown the journey with resurrection, to walk forth as the new creation. For in 7 days the false self has died and the true self has risen. And from this moment on, you are no longer bound by the grooves of fear, lack, sickness, resentment, envy, or delay. You are free, you are whole, you are prosperous, you are radiant, you are divinely guided, you are fully expressed. And now, beloved, we are ready to seal this entire journey with a closing word, a summary of all that has been accomplished, a decree that binds it into your being, and an open door to the next revelation that awaits you. And now, beloved, we stand at the end of the 7 days, and yet it is not an end at all, it is a beginning. For in these 7 movements, the old self has died, and the new you has risen. On the first day, you exposed the false self, named it for what it was, a shadow, a lie, a groove of fear and complaint, and you struck the first cut against it with the decree of demolition. On the second day, you buried fear, the only enemy, facing its roaring lions and discovering they were nothing but shadows that collapsed before your word. On the third day, you broke the chains of poverty, exposing lack as a false record and declaring God as your unfailing supply, until the purse of your being was crammed and jammed with abundance. On the fourth day, you healed the body, smashing the grooves of sickness, speaking words of life until every atom vibrated with divine light and strength. On the fifth day, you erased the past through forgiveness, canceling the debts of resentment, clearing the soil of bitterness, and planting new seeds of truth, love, and joy. On the sixth day, you opened the secret door to success, dissolving envy, preparing in faith, and shouting down the walls of Jericho until every barrier crumbled before your decree. And on this 7th day, you have risen fully into your divine design, following the still small voice of intuition, and declaring your perfect self-expression, your perfect place, your perfect work, your perfect joy. The old self is gone. The grooves of fear and lack are smashed. The records of sickness and resentment are erased. The walls of envy and delay are fallen. You are no longer bound by the false identity that once held you in chains. You are new. You are risen. You are clothed in the divine design that has always been yours. And from this moment forward, your life is no longer the echo of false grooves, but the living melody of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. Let us seal it now with the decree of resurrection. Speak it with me, not as a learner repeating words, but as a master declaring truth. I am new. The old self is gone. I rise in truth. I rise in love. I rise in prosperity. I rise in perfect self-expression. Nothing of the past binds me. My new life unfolds now, under grace, in perfect ways. Speak it until you feel the crown upon your head, until you sense the light within you blazing, until you know without doubt that you have crossed over from shadow into substance, from death into life, from bondage into freedom. And yet, beloved, before we part, I must leave you with a warning and a promise. For even now, risen and radiant, there is one phrase more dangerous than fear, more destructive than lack, more insidious than sickness. It is a phrase spoken daily by countless souls without knowing it, a phrase that cancels blessings, that shuts doors, that erases demonstrations before they can fully flower. Until this phrase is banished, no resurrection is complete. In my next message, I will reveal this deadly phrase, and I will show you how to tear it from your speech forever, so that nothing can ever sabotage the harvest you have planted. So click now and follow me into the next revelation, for the journey does not end here. You have risen, but there is more to be given. The final root of limitation must still be pulled, and when it is, you will be free indeed.